This video is to cover an overview of the Advprofile add-on. Following extensive research and testing to enhance and extend the existing OFA profile elements and the proprietary volume calculations, we're pleased to announce this new addition to the OFA product suite called the Advprofile. In a similar way that OFA users will already be familiar with the CWAP and working with the CWAP as an entry and the VWAP as a stop area, some of these additional new elements now give us an opportunity to work with the DWAP, which is often respected and tested for many of the future contracts. So some of these additional elements you will now be able to see and observe in the profile patterns to use these other elements as a stop risk zone area for VWAP based entries, where the price breaks through the CWAP and tests around the VWAP zone. You will see opportunities to work with these new elements for VWAP based entries. Now this is just one example, just to illustrate how you can work with these new elements. In the accompanying settings video, I already covered the process of connecting a profile to this Advprofile menu option here. The two main means, in summary, are you open up an active profile, one of the decision point, range or swing, or you enable the profile to be connected to the Advprofile menu. So you can see here this is actually already enabled to the Advprofile. So again, this is covered in more detail in the settings video. I will mention this through the video just to explain when we're connected and when we're not, but as I said, I've covered this in more detail in a separate video. First of all, I'd like to just run through the volume profile settings. In this additional Advprofile tab, you will see all these elements starting with the evolving upper value line all the way down to the evolving standard deviation lines. One aspect of the new features of this add-on is that we now additionally calculate and generate all of the evolving profile detail and data points for some of the existing core OFA profile elements that you're already familiar with, those being the standard deviation, the volume point of control, the value area, and the cluster area. Running through these briefly, top to bottom, you'll see we have the evolving upper value, lower. We've included this additional median line, which is a median midpoint of the upper and lower value area. The cluster upper and lower evolving lines. The volume point of control, so we can see the history and the shift of the point of control, where value builds and develops in the profile. And it also gives some note as to the duration of each point of control level in the profile region. Next, down here we see the evolving standard deviation lines, which in this case is 2 upper bands and 2 lower bands calculated around the VWAP. Again, this plots all the history in detail for us to see and observe where price is testing and retesting these levels during the profile. Additionally, we've incorporated the midline, which is a 50 line. So rather than being a specific fib line, it's more just the midline of the evolving profile. This level is often used by institutions and can be noted for frequent testing as the profile swings, and the minor swings within the profile can retest this area as the trend and the profile develops. In addition to the aforementioned, we also have 5 additional new volume profile data elements that have been included in this add-on. Starting here with the TWAP, which is time-weighted average priced, which is a time-based weighting in milliseconds, in this instance based on the point of control, and this one below is based on the close price. For non-time-based bars, primarily, e.g. the OFA probe and rotation, this can give us some feedback as to how much time has been spent building value be that lower value in the case of a downtrend or upper value in the case of an uptrend. As more time is spent in the trend move, more time is thus included in the weighted calculation, which has the effect of pulling the line up or down. The next one here is the DWAP, which is a proprietary differential CWAP based calculation. This volume based calculation can, for example, be used as a stop for entries around the VWAP, for example. Often when the first standard deviation price is too far away in terms of ticks to be used as a stop, we can see, and you'll see illustrated in examples, the DWAP offers a better risk reward that makes sense for us to take a trade based off of the VWAP and the stop around the DWAP. The next one here is a CWAP VWAP diff line. This tracks the difference between the CWAP and the VWAP and plots on the opposite side of the VWAP relative to the location of the CWAP line. If you can see here on the chart where my cursor is, we have the magenta, which is the VWAP color. The one above in the blue is the CWAP, and then the pink one on the opposite side, this represents the CWAP. So you can see it's tracking a band of price volume on the other side of VWAP relative to the location of the CWAP. So this tab here in summary provides a list of all the available options for this advanced profile with color settings, line thickness, changes you want to make, changes to the style, and also whether this is enabled or disabled. Currently for this swing profile you can see the VPOT, which is in yellow, the DWAP and the CWAP DWAP diff line, they're enabled. The DWAP is the cyan. We also have the midpoint 50 line, which is the dotted white, and then also you can see the evolving 2 upper and 2 lower bands. So I'm now going to close this. Again, I've covered this in the settings video. So now I'm going to focus on some examples to illustrate each of these new elements. I'd like to start with this example here of the oil contract in the afternoon session. You can see here we have a zone of the CWAP, which is the blue, the VWAP, the CWAP diff, which is in the pink, and then the DWAP, which is in the blue. So we have a zone here of price testing between the CWAP and the VWAP. But before the price actually takes off, you can see that prices drop below the VWAP. Underneath we have as I said, we have the CWAP diff and the DWAP as potential areas where we can lean against for our stop. If we measure the risk between the VWAP, which is at 72.17, and the price of the CWAP diff, that's a 4 tick difference. So if we wanted to, in this instance, use the CWAP diff and have the stop 1 tick below, that would give us approximately of a 5 tick risk. If we use the DWAP, which is priced at 72.11, that is a 6 tick risk, or if we went 1 below, that is 7 ticks. So we have, I just wanted to show here we have some options here. And additionally, we have the confluence of the volume point of control here and the evolution of that, and also the 50 line, which is below. So I wanted to start with this example, which shows several areas of where the price tests these new additional elements. In addition, I also have the upper and lower standard deviation lines as well. One thing that we can add when we're connected to this menu is we have a quick display which can very quickly hide and display some additional elements that we have not saved for the current profile. For example, we could add the value area, and you can see here we have a band, quite a tight band of the value area, where again, if this was an area we were looking to enter, we also have the confluence of the lower value area to the additional new elements here. I can also add the cluster value area, which you can see here is a much tighter band. So in this example, this is not a particularly good example to see this. If I just want to remove the lines that I've just added to revert back to the saved settings, I click Restore, and that takes me back to the saved profile settings I currently have. As I covered in the video of the settings, if I no longer wish this profile to be connected to the menu and I just wish to retain the existing elements, I can disable this from the Advanced Profile menu by selecting this button here in the context menu. So now if I select Value Area or TWAP Point of Control, you can see that it has no effect on this current selected profile. Again, you can see here that it's disabled from the menu. So I just wanted to recap that so you can see the effect. This has been provided as some flexibility if you have multiple profiles. For example, decision point profiles, which are smaller profiles around a pivot area, typically you wouldn't want to see all this additional detail. So this enables us to have some control as to which of the profiles on our chart actually will display any of the new elements from the menu. So I'm going to remove again the value area. In this next example, the 6C contract in the London session, I'd like to show you this. I've left the same settings for this swing profile, those being the CWAP and the VWAP, being the blue and the magenta. And I've also left the DWAP, which is the cyan blue, and the pink is the CWAP diff. Additionally, the standard deviations you can see, the volume point of control evolving, which is in the yellow, and the 50 line. So you can see here in this early development of this swing here is that we test the upper standard deviation too, and you can see here that the price is holding along the VWAP between the CWAP and the VWAP zone. Below you can see the DWAP and also the CWAP diff. So again, we have a confluence here of the midline and the DWAP as an area of a potential stop, which affords us a better risk reward opportunity had we entered at the CWAP and placed our stop at or one tick below the VWAP. We have a much reduced risk reward opportunity here. Once we get familiar with these levels for the contracts that we trade, in reducing our risk, it enables us to more readily achieve our 2-to-1 first profit target objective. And with a reduced risk, if your contract supports multiple contracts, you can trade more contracts relative to that reduced risk. So I just wanted to outline a couple of examples here of these lines, and you can fine-tune and remove whichever ones you want to use, whether you trade oil, 6E, 6J, nat gas, ES, NQ, and once you're familiar with the characteristics of your contract, you will more readily see which of these lines is respected and tested. So again, up here at the 0929, we have a test of the VWAP, and below we have a confluence of the point of control and also the DWAP. Along here, the DWAP is actually broken, but more likely we would have taken one of these early swings, either here or here, before this one was broken. Moving further along into this session, I just wanted to show you an example here of this move down. You can see here that the price has broken this prior low. So we've had a breakthrough here and then a strong pullback. Now you can actually see it's broken through the DWAP area here. So whilst this is probably a bit more of an advanced opportunity, we can see here we have the DWAP and the standard deviation 1, upper standard deviation 1, as a potential zone before the breakdown. We have quite a tight band here of the VWAP and the DWAP, and you can see as I've said, it's come back, not quite testing the high of the 1226 bar, but you can see here there's a zone here before the price breaks down. And I just wanted to point this particular one out. As you can now see the standard deviation lines evolving, rather than just the lines themselves, which can be harder to track as to where price has been and tested, you will now be able to observe areas where quite often the upper or lower standard deviation is often a zone that is tested before price breaks away. So again, I just wanted to illustrate that one there, where actually the DWAP is actually broken. But then if you look at the back, if in your back testing you look at the history of profiles, you will often see that that actually is a zone area that we can consider for an entry, either here, or if we want to wait for that to be tested and broken through before engaging with the price action. This next example with the ES, I just wanted to show where the standard deviation lines flatten out, where we have a range here. You can see here the lower standard deviation 1 and upper standard deviation, where price, as price flattens out in ranges, we have a rotation here between the upper one and the lower one. So the reversion to the mean trade is where we trade back to VWAP, and with more experience and practice you can take that to as a target to the other side as well. So here we have a range opportunity working within the bands of the standard deviation to the VWAP and to the other side. So this is just one example of where you can see with the flattening of the standard deviation lines, we can employ these in a range trading situation to work for us for our entries and our exits. This next example of the ES, which starts before the cash open, around 1:20 London time, you can see the DWAP, again the cyan line where that's respected. We're 15 minutes into the open, almost 20 minutes into the open here at this bar here. So you can see that we've broken through the VWAP. Again, the volume, the actual volume itself of that bar is just resting just above. The one following is just below, but you can see where the 50 and the DWAP has been respected and could have been used as an entry opportunity with one or two ticks below the DWAP, sorry, depending on your risk profile. So I just wanted to show the confluence of these lines. Whilst this may, apologies if it appears cluttered, it's just really the purpose is to illustrate the location and the effect of each of these lines. Again, you can very easily fine-tune these. For example, if I wanted to disable this one, the CWAP diff line, and save that, I can do so. So now you can see that we just have the DWAP here between the VWAP and then the CWAP. Okay, so that's another example of the DWAP. Here again we have this zone which is just before the open. We have this area between the DWAP and the lower standard deviation where it gets tested before it progresses. Again, this typically in a move, what I've observed is generally in this first swing move you will have a slightly deeper pullback before the actual move progresses. So one thing as a suggestion to keep track of is this area between the DWAP and the lower standard deviation in the case of this uptrend. Look back in your charts at these main swings and just see where price holds and stops before continuing in the trend. I'd like to show an example of the TWAP point of control, which is this brown line that's displaying in this profile here. This is the time weighted average price. I'm showing this on a minute chart, so that's the OFA 5-minute chart for the 6E contract. You can see here that in the minute-based charts, for users that use the minute-based, I've also added here, just for illustration, the cumulative delta. So as the price is breaking down, you can see the CWAP and the VWAP intertwine very closely here, and then price pulls back, just breaking slightly the TWAP here before pulling away for a move. But I want you also to just observe the buying deltas here coming into this move. We have very strong buying deltas, which is buying at market, yet the price is not advancing higher. So it's indicative of a lot of absorption on the offer side. So there's a lot of sell limits that are absorbing a lot of this market buying, and you can see the evidence of that. So I just wanted to show you an example of divergence of price action relative to the cumulative delta. So this is one example where this TWAP POC serves as a moving average of the point of control. It's one way to look at it. It's a kind of moving average of the point of control, but this is on an OFA minute-based chart. This next example, it shows the YM. This particular swing starts again before the cash open. We come into just before the cash open and we have this test of the VWAP and the 50 and the DWAP here. So we have this zone here, and then the price continues north beyond the 3 o'clock London time. So we have a test here, and then we have another test of the VWAP here. Also, what I'd like to draw your attention to is if you contrast this bar here at 1430 and the level of the cumulative delta to this bar here at 1448, you can see that in the cumulative selling that's reflected in the cumulative delta, the price is not continuing to drop here. So again, this is indicative of absorption at the bid for all of these sell deltas. And then you can see the effect of that is the price moves up. So all of the absorption on the limit side, once the accumulation is finished and around the VWAP area, all these trapped sellers now facilitate this move up. Okay, so I just wanted to cover the YM and again the confluence of the DWAP and the VWAP. In summary, some of the features and benefits of using all of these new data elements is that it can fine-tune your entries for the contracts that you trade with these additional new elements plus the evolving ones, i.e. the standard deviation and the value area. I'm going to enable this so that it's connected. So you can now see the value area evolving for this chart. So what we can do with this is once we have spent some time with these additional lines, is that we can reduce our risk and potentially increase a contract size in certain instances to take advantage of levels that we see that have consistency in holding and testing and being able to use for our stops. It also gives us the ability to visually track and review how the volume and how the price interacts with these evolving lines. So we can go back test in history in building our strategies and also for AlgoX users to actually build their algos. It gives them a visual way of being able to keep track of and plan new strategies at different times of the day, at different times of the session for their instrument. It gives us more clarity for the standard deviation as to where, when it's anchored from here, we can see when it's tested, does it break the upper standard, does it stop and reverse at the upper standard deviation 2, etc. And it gives us more confidence in building and tracking the profile elements that we can use for our strategies. One point I'd like to note here is that for any AlgoX users, all of these additional new elements, particularly the DWAP, the CWAP difference, the midline, the value area median, and the 2 TWAPs, all of these new elements will be included in all of the AlgoX algos. We will be releasing this shortly following this release. So all of these new elements, for users who are authorized for the advanced profile, you will be able to access and use these new elements in your algos. I just wanted to make that clear. My suggestion to users of this new add-on is that start working with one or two elements rather than adding all of them to the chart at the same time. I also mentioned in the settings video, if you see here the swing active, I'm going to add the swing active profile here. And as I stated, you can only have one active profile on the chart at any one time. AlgoX users will be familiar with this process, as this then connects this to the AlgoX, so that AlgoX knows which of the profiles on the chart are being used to determine and calculate the various values. I covered the connecting to the settings menu in that settings video, but what I would suggest is that to begin with, by default, the active profile will be connected to this advanced profile. So work with this initially before you start adding other profiles and then enabling them to the menu. We've tried to streamline this to be a smooth process, but also adding flexibility if you have several profiles on the chart. So again, my recommendation would be to start working with, for example, the DWAP and perhaps the standard deviation lines or the midline, and add them one by one instead of adding them all together. That would be my suggestion.